Hi BookTube, how are you doing? I hope you're doing wonderfully well. My name is Juan, I am just one reader, and I am coming to you with a Friday Reads, in which I will casually tell you about what I just read, what I've been reading, what I am reading, and what I will be reading this weekend. So firstly, I want to start with a book that I just finished. I pretty much read this book, The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, in one sitting yesterday morning. Yesterday morning, it was freezing cold here in Mexico City. I know that most of you guys watching are enjoying or suffering really high temperatures in really warm places. But Mexico is just kind of a weird in-between zone. It's a weird place weather-wise. Basically, it's really cold sometimes, like freezing cold, wintry cold. And then in a couple of hours, the sun is out and you are, just dying from the heat and you feel like you are, I don't know, at the beach. So it's a weird, I digress. So what I was saying is that yesterday I just stayed indoors because it was so freezing cold. I didn't feel like doing anything. So I just stayed in and I pretty much read The Catcher in the Rye in one sitting. And I feel like I really need to let everything that I felt and thought from reading this book, I just need to let everything simmer. I need to articulate everything before I can make a review or talk about it in another video. But basically, I thought this book was just a masterpiece, and it is a masterpiece. I am not saying any big revelations here. This book is a masterpiece, and it is a classic, and it's a staple of American literature and of literature in general. And something that I loved about it is that even though it is very American in a way, it's super general. It speaks and it taps into something incredibly common, something common to, I would dare say, all of humankind, which is adolescence and how adolescent conflict works in the psyche. And that's something pretty universal, I think, and something that has happened throughout history and will always be very similar. There's something about how the mind works that is very universal, and it pretty much stays the same throughout history. So even though a lot of the external things change, a lot of what happens internally in the mind is pretty much standard. So I loved this book, and you know what? Talking about 2018 in general, I think this year, 2018, has been probably my best year reading-wise ever. I have read some astounding books this year. I think I have been really good at curating my reading year. I have been very careful selecting my TBR for every month of the year, and I have read some really incredible books. Actually, I am starting to really dread the time in which I have to make my top 10 of the year, because it's gonna be really tough. I have read at least 10 novels or 10 books that I have given 5 stars to, and that's something. I mean, usually I give maybe 2 or 3 books every year a 5-star rating, but this year, because I've been so good or so careful at selecting the books that I read, I've read some really amazing things. And The Catcher in the Rye is just another one of these amazing books that have blown my mind and not just met my already very high expectations, but actually exceeded them and topped them. This book is just one of my new favorite character studies, and it's a very psychoanalytical book. I think this is a book that was written in the age in which psychoanalysis was starting to be developed, and there's a lot of psychoanalytical influence in this novel and the way that this character is portrayed, and I think psychoanalysts are bound to really love this particular novel. So I will let everything that I thought and felt simmer in my mind, and I will articulate everything and hopefully make a more coherent review. But yeah, I gave this 5 stars. It was just spectacular. And so then after that, I've decided to go for something very different, because if I read another literary novel with, you know, characters, studies, and everything right now, after having read The Catcher in the Rye, I would just be disappointed. It would be unfair to that book. So instead, I just went for something completely different. And so I chose a nonfiction and a historical fiction because I feel like those are very different, and also they are very they can be read simultaneously, hand in hand, without making me confused. So the nonfiction is The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. This is a book that I've been reading slowly. Because it's nonfiction, I just like to read nonfiction very slowly and maybe read a chapter and then put the book down and come back to it a week later. And so I've slowly been reading this, but it is so good. Not only is it good and true and, you know, well researched and well thought out and everything, but it's actually so well written. I mean, Richard Dawkins has a really beautiful writing style, very elegant, very snarky, very, very witty and funny. But comparing him to Christopher Hitchens is more aggressive and more sarcastic, and Richard Dawkins is more elegant, I would say. Not that I don't think Christopher Hitchens isn't elegant, because he is, but he is just more, I don't know, but I'm loving this. And finally, the other book that I just started last night, is Golden Hill by Francis Bufford, which is a historical fiction set in old New York, like really old New York, when it was an English colony in the 1700s. And I am having some problems with this book. I just read, I think, the first chapter, and it's interesting, but I'm feeling kind of stupid, honestly. I'm feeling very, very distant from the story and the characters. I actually feel a little bit stupid because it's difficult to read. It's written in this really florid, Baroque writing style that is just like so flowery and so over the top that it's actually difficult for me to understand what's going on, and I am finding myself having to reread certain passages because I just have no idea what just happened. But it is kind of interesting. It is the story of this man who has a lot of money, and he comes into New York from London, and he's just kind of arriving there, and we don't know why he's there. He has this kind of mission, and people in New York are starting to get suspicious, and that's pretty much it. It is interesting, and I am engaged, but it's just difficult. So please, if you have read Golden Hill, let me know. Did you feel the same, or do I need to take an IQ test? So anyway, those are the books that I will be reading this weekend. Let me know in the comments down below, what have you read recently and what will you be reading? And I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.